class is in memory of Jared Orchen. Many years ago, when I was a yeshiva student, I used to go every Friday afternoon in Israel to Tel Aviv, to the old main bus station in Tel Aviv. Anybody remembers many years ago in Tel Aviv? And we used to stand up there, stand by tables, small tables, and offer Jews to put on film. Well, thousands of people passing by. It was really a lot of fun. Hot and this, for hours, every Friday afternoon. One day, somebody calls me, come, we have a Jew, an American Jew doesn't speak Hebrew, but he speaks Yiddish. And I was speaking Yiddish, that I can communicate with them. Comes and tells me in Yiddish, my father died, I need to say Akol Nidrei. What he meant to say, he wanted to say Kaddish. But he didn't remember the word Kaddish, but he remembered the word Kol Nidrei. I told him, you mean Kaddish, right? He said, yeah, Kaddish. He wants to say Kaddish. He had Yortzeit that day. Then we gathered 10 guys on the streets there, in a corner, and he said Kaddish. This idea of having 10 people to say, every Jew knows, by Jewish people we pray with a minyan. Minyan is one of the most sanctified things in Judaism, the most amazing inventions of Judaism. What is the source in the Torah for the concept of a minyan? There is a Babylonian Talmud source and there is a Jerusalem Talmud source. The Babylonian Talmud source says from the Torah, we learn it from the story of the spies. Moses sent 12 spies to spy the land of Israel. They came back. 2, Joshua and Caleb said, the land is a very good land. 10 said, no, we will not be able to go, it's too hard, they will fight us, they are stronger than us, it's not going to work. God was upset with the 10, and how he calls them, he says, for how long this evil congregation will make me upset? Evil congregation. Because God called the 10 men a congregation, we know from there that the congregation is 10. That's source number 1. Not such a good place to learn a minyan from evil congregation, but that's a congregation. The second place is Jerusalem Talmud brings from the story of the selling of Joseph. The brothers sold Joseph. Later they went to look for Joseph. 10 brothers went down to Egypt to look for Joseph. But the Torah, when the Torah mentions the Torah says, "Vayerdu achei Yosef," the brothers of Joseph went down, 10. Why the Torah points out it's 10? We know Joseph had 10 brothers who went down. Joseph was number 11. Benjamin stayed with his father, right? Obviously that's 10. Why the Torah points out the number 10? The Talmud says because 10, they believe that with the power of 10, they will have more success to find Joseph. That was a part of the agenda. That's the second source for the concept of 10 people as a minyan, as a group, as more power. The third place in the Torah we find the concept of 10 is the obvious. Sodom and Gomorrah. When Abraham was arguing with God to save Sodom and Gomorrah, God told him that's an evil place, I want to destroy it. He started to negotiate it about 50 people. Couldn't find 50, he said 45, 40, 30, 20, 10. I went down to number 10 because he said if there is no 10, we cannot save the place. We're not going to the details, 50 because it was 5 cities that he wanted 10 for each city. 40, he said maybe we'll save only 4 cities. Couldn't even find 10. Then 10, we know from this, the 10, that's a third source, that 10 is the number, the magical number that makes it into a congregation, makes it into something more powerful than just an individual. 9, it's still 9 individuals. 10, they are not individuals anymore. It's a group. It's a community. It's a congregation. But where we find the concept of, that's with 10 people, where the whole concept of 10, the number 10 came from? Where in the Torah we find the number 10?
10
Ten Commandments.
10
that comes
statements.
the first one, Ten Commandments, that comes to mind, as you're going to learn in 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, 2 weeks. In Parshah B0, we read about the Ten Commandments. God chose to give us the law in 10. He could give us in 9, he could give us in 11, tell us one more commandment, don't be a nudnik. I mean, it could be an extra commandment. You can find, why 10? Obviously, God wanted 10. The other place we see 10 is in these parshas, the 10 plagues. God could give 9 plagues, give 11 plagues, could give 1 plague and wipe out all Egypt. God chose to operate by the number 10. And all of this, why this number 10? Because there is something 10 that not too many people know. When God created the world, how God created the world? What he did?
10 words.
He spoke. He said. He said, and God said, let there be light. It's called 10 utterances, 10 statements. The last one is, let us make man. Nice order. Vayomer Elokim, and God said, and God, every time it's written, God said, it's an utterance. God chose to create the world in 10 statements. That's how he created the world. So, what happened is that when God created the world, something very important for us to remember. God didn't create the world once and retire to Florida. God is constantly creating the world. When God says, let there be light, is the light, God is constantly recreating the world every second. That's the Jewish belief. For example, you know the inflatables. You don't have to destroy an inflatable. You pull it out from the plug, disappears. The whole thing collapses. God does not need, so to speak, he created the world, he will need to destroy the world with tractors. The moment he pulls the plug, the whole thing will disappear. God is constantly creating the world. That's a part of Jewish belief. And that's why God is not, many people believe that God is the creator of the world, but not necessarily runs the world, runs the show. But if you understand it, what means creator of the world? Creating. We say it in the prayers every morning. המחדש בטובו כל יום תמיד מעשה בראשית. One who renews the creation every day. Not every day, every moment. God is renewing the creation, the first creation of the world. That's why every week we said Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, God created the world in 7 days. We don't count day number 8. We count a day. Number 1, number 2, first day, second, again. Every week is a 7th day of creation. Then God created the world in 10 utterances. But what happened during the history? People forgot that God is the creator of the world. As you're going to speak about it maybe next week, God created the world. I mean, people started to say, oh, we have to say thank you to the sun for doing for us such a good job. We know that the God runs the sun, created the sun. But we'll also say thank you, say thank you to the waiters who gives you the food. Even, the waiters is just a worker here. But you say thank you to him. We'll say thank you to the sun, to the moon. And little by little, people forgot about the creator of the universe. Then when God wanted to come back to the world, many, many years after the creation, how many years after the creation was the giving of the Torah?
3,300.
No, that's 3,300 is now, from now.
2,400.
2,400.
2,400.
2,400. Then the God wanted to give the Torah to humanity, but everybody forgot that there is a God. That to remind humanity about the 10 ordinances, he made the 10 plagues to break the idols, to wake up the world 10 times. They should remember what is written about Egypt, and Egypt should know that there is a God. And you should know that there is a God, knowing that there is a God. When he cleaned up the stupidity of the idol worshipping, it was place for the 10 commandments. Then it starts with the 10 ordinances. Then to wake up, bring the world back to a state of believing in God, you needed the 10 plagues. And it ended, so to speak, with the Ten Commandments. That every time we have a minyan, it's a way to remember the Ten Commandments. Remember the Ten Commandments? Remember that God created the world, and basically the two most important things. What is Shabbat representing? We say in the Kiddush, for the Shabbat, we say, Zecher le'maaseh bereshit, remembering the creation of the world, and Zecher le'yetziat Mitzrayim, remembering the Exodus from Egypt. Two things. That's what the minyan is all about. Reminding us the two most important things, the creation of the world and the giving of the Torah. And there is another thing in 10. We read the Torah in the synagogue Saturday morning, that's the whole Parsha, but then we read the Torah Mondays and Thursdays, every Monday and every Thursday. Why we read the Torah every Monday and every Thursday? Because the Jewish people should not be going without 3 days without learning Torah. Based on a verse in the Bible that the Jews went 3 days without water and they complained to God. A human being cannot survive without water for 3 days. That's why Jewish people also, the Torah is compared to water, that you cannot survive without it. Then we every 3 days we read from the Torah. Why it's Mondays and Thursdays, it's a whole other story, because Moses went up the last time for 40 days. He went up on a Thursday, I think he came down on a Monday. It's 2 days who are more merciful to the Jewish people. God is accepting is a more merciful mood than the rest of the week. Therefore, if we read the Torah, we read it on these days.
There's this contradiction that it's because those were market days. Were those market days because Moses came down on those days?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think the market days were not set up because Moses came out. The market days were not set up by the Jews. You understand what I'm saying? In any case, but on these days, also on Shabbat afternoon, Mincha service, we read again the Torah. We read 3 aliyahs. We call up for 3 people. And the minimum amount of verses that we have to read in this short reading, the shortest reading could be altogether 10 verses. It must be 10. And the Talmud says, why 10? 2 opinions. Surprise, surprise. One is to remind us, but the 2 opinions are basically the same idea. One is to remind us the 10 Commandments. That's Rabbi Yosef says. Rabbi Yochanan says to remind us the 10 utterances. Again, end in end. There was a Jew, a Holocaust survivor. His name was Abba Kubner. He was a leader. He was in Israel. He was a poet and a writer. And he came to Israel. He says he writes in his memoirs. He came to Israel. He came to visit the wall. It was before 1948. He said he stood in front of the wall, and he didn't feel any connection. He feels it's a wall, the Western Wall in Jerusalem. And he says he was standing there, and he was like, he couldn't connect. Suddenly, somebody pulls him by his sleeves and tells him, "Would you mind to join us for the minyan?" They needed him for that number 10. Put on a kippah on his head, a yarmulke, and he says, in one moment, he felt connected. He said it saved him. Jewishly, it saved him. He suddenly realized that in the Jewish people, the community, it's all about. You can be, no, it doesn't make a difference who you are. Count you to the minyan. That's what it's all about. It's all the invention of community praying together. That's the power of the Jewish people. That's what kept the Jewish people going together.
Which are the key prayers that require a minyan?
Every Amidah, in general. Every time a service means Amidah, and every there is Amidah, you need to have 10 people. But there is something more about 10 Jews. When we say the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, Reb Shneur Zalman of Liadi, writes in his book, in Titania, it's the Bible of Hasidus, it's called. He writes there, I heard from my teachers that when 10 Jews come together in one room, the Shekhinah, the divine presence, is stronger, is very strong. The presence of God, the energy, the spiritual energy is very big there. It's nothing to do with prayers. 10 Jews in one room, 10 babies in one room. They bring together, there is already 10 Jewish, because there is 10 Jewish souls, there is an energy that's there. He says, what type of energy? that even angels cannot survive it. That's how much energy is in the room. That's why it's so important not only to pray with a minyan, to learn Torah in a group. A person can say, oh, I will go online, I'll learn Torah on my own. It doesn't come to the power, to the connection with God that we have 10 people in the same room. The level of spirituality and energy is much bigger. Maybe that's why religious Jews have 10 children. They want to have a minyan in their own house every day. I can tell you that there is a lot of energy going on there.
Yeah, but you're short.
And there is one more thing. When two people meet together, what they do when you meet another person and you want to introduce yourself, you shake your hand. Every hand has 5 fingers. Together, it's like 2 tablets. And 2 people shake their hand. What they remind each other about the 10 commandments and the 10 ordinances. Then God created the whole system in 10. And one thing reminds the other. The fingers remind you about the 10 commandments, the dominion. It's all about a reminder all the way to the creation of the universe.